We've got 4 new eliminations this week and also some changes based off of those first playoff rankings that we got last week. So let's go through, show you the current playoff picture, who's been eliminated, all of that. And again, I will at the end show you the updated bracket on if the favorites win out the rest of the season. We'll show you what that bracket will wind up looking like. Of course, that's probably not the way it's going to go, but we'll show you that anyway. So these teams are already eliminated going into this past weekend. You can see a ton of teams already gone. Not even listing all the group of 5 teams that have been eliminated, but we will show you the group of 5 teams that are still there. San Diego State was eliminated. If we're talking about the group of 5 teams, I don't think that a 2-loss Mountain West team has much of a chance unless we get just complete chaos in the American. But it feels like it's going to be either the American champion or James Madison. And I'm really curious to see if an American team or James Madison, which one of those winds up as the group of 5 representative this week, or does one of those teams wind up ranked in this week's rankings? So that'll be very interesting to see coming up tonight. So these teams already eliminated. Now let's get to the new eliminations. We got Iowa, Missouri, TCU, and Washington. So Iowa going down in a close game. I showed you in my rankings projection. I still think they're going to be ranked, but I don't see that there's just not enough there for them to climb up into to high enough to where they could possibly make the playoffs. So they're out of it. Missouri is out of it now with 3 losses. There's just no way they make it that high. TCU kind of out of the Big 12 race now. That's what they were kind of banking on, was a chance to get to the Big 12 championship. Now if they've lost again, they're out. And then Washington, boy, who saw that one coming, losing to Wisconsin? Even if they went out now and get a big win over Oregon at the end of the season, that's not going to be enough. So we talked about this on the takeaways video. The Big Ten is losing teams quickly, and their path to getting 4 teams into the playoff, it's not looking great. You need USC to win out, Oregon to only lose to USC, or you need Michigan to upset Ohio State, which obviously could happen. They've done it the last 3 years, but it's definitely the odds are definitely going more towards 3 Big Ten teams than they are for 4 right now. All right, so these are the new eliminations. Now let's take a look at the teams that must win their conference to get into the college football playoff. Arizona State, Cincinnati, Duke, Georgia Tech, Houston, Louisville, Miami, Pittsburgh, SMU, and Virginia. So these are all Big 12 teams or ACC teams. And again, it's going to be, what's crazy is a team like Duke could still win the ACC. And there is a world where Duke could possibly win the ACC and not make the college football playoff, and the ACC doesn't even get a team in. So the way that this could happen is they've only got 1 loss. So if they win out and they win the tiebreakers, they get in the ACC championship, they win it. They're sitting there with 4 losses. Now what happens if you got a 2-loss USF, a 1-loss James Madison, and a 4-loss Duke? Who gets in? I think the ACC probably gets left out in that scenario. So that would be wild if that were to happen. Odds are not great for that to happen, but you never know. I mean, I'd say they have a decent shot to get to the ACC championship. This thing is wide open, and they're sitting there in that tie right now. A bunch of teams with 1 loss. So Duke can absolutely get there. We'll see if they do. That would be interesting. You've got these teams out of the Big 12. It feels like if Texas Tech and BYU went out, then obviously they're going to be in the Big 12 championship. But if BYU loses, then we got tiebreakers potentially in the Big 12. In the ACC, again, all these teams are alive. Now, I did move Miami to this category. Last week, I had them alive as an at-large, but because of where they were ranked, I don't think Miami can get in without winning the ACC. I don't think a 10-2 Miami gets in with where they were ranked in those initial rankings. They do have an opportunity now. If Pittsburgh were to beat Notre Dame, Pittsburgh moves up to like 15 or something. Miami beats them. Maybe that's enough to get them at least into that conversation. But again, based off of where they were ranked in those initial rankings, I don't think Miami can get in without winning the ACC. And I think that's really the case with all of these teams. You got to win your conference for these teams if you're in the ACC or Big 12. Still some ACC and Big 12 teams that can get there without winning the conference. Actually, not ACC. I don't think we have any ACC teams that can win or that can get into the college football playoff without winning the conference. So that means we're guaranteed to only get one team out of that conference, potentially 0, like I mentioned, but they're not getting 2 in. Now, the Big 12 has some opportunities to get 2 teams in. As you see, the teams that are still alive for an at-large spot, and I should have put Notre Dame here on this list. I never think about it because I go through the conferences and I make my list. Yeah, join a conference, Notre Dame, and then I won't forget you as much, but it was not intentional. Obviously, Notre Dame still very much alive for an at-large. In fact, if they went out, they're in. So you've got Alabama, unless we get that SEC chaos scenario that I talked about the other day, that would be the only way that there's in. I mean, they're pretty much Notre Dame is guaranteed to get in. Anyways, back to the teams. Alabama, BYU, Georgia, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas A&M, Texas, Texas Tech, USC, Utah, and Vanderbilt. I would say that all of these teams control their destiny to get into the playoff, with the exception of maybe Vandy and Utah. I think that they might need a little bit of help. Not a lot of help, but a little bit of help to get in. And I think everyone else, USC, if they went out, is that going to be enough? Well, again, maybe those teams right there, USC, Utah, Vanderbilt, they might need a little bit of help. But everyone else went out, and you're going to be in. For Alabama, obviously, they're in great shape right now, headed to the SEC Championship if they don't lose another game. BYU, if they get past Cincinnati, then they will be in the Big 12 Championship. They'll get a rematch with Texas Tech. Georgia in great shape. Indiana, Michigan, if they win out and they beat Ohio State, I think they're going to be there. Maybe they need a little bit of help, but I don't think so. I think that win would be enough to get them up there. Obviously, Ohio State's in great shape. Oklahoma, if they beat Alabama, if they beat LSU, Oklahoma's going to be in the college football playoff. Ole Miss, obviously, if they win out. Oregon, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, if they win the Big 12. That's going to be interesting, though, if Texas Tech, let's say they lose in the Big 12 championship game to BYU. Do both teams get in? What happens if BYU wins out? They go 11-1, but then they lose to Texas Tech again, and the game's not all that close. Like, that Big 12, it's going to be very interesting. Is there a chance that Utah could actually finish ahead of BYU despite the head-to-head if Utah is really impressive and BYU, again, like I said, if they get blown out by Texas Tech? Like, there are a lot of different ways it could go there in the Big 12, and maybe we're overlooking some upsets. Maybe Texas Tech goes down. Maybe BYU loses. Maybe it's not even what we think. It wouldn't shock me because this is college football and crazy things happen late in the season. But these teams all are still alive. Then we got our group of 5 teams that are still alive. Don't forget about East Carolina. They're sitting there still with 1 loss in the American. You've got Memphis, Navy, North Texas, Tulane, and South Florida all still alive, although Tulane now does have 2 losses. It's going to be tough for them. Memphis and Tulane, I believe, both have 2 losses, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then James Madison, obviously, with the 1 loss. So these teams are still alive, still in their conference. All these teams in the American still in that conference race. Whoever wins it probably gets in. Again, I'm very curious to see where James Madison stacks up with the top American team as of right now. So if the favorites went out, this is what the bracket's going to look like. Again, I had to kind of go through. For example, Texas is actually favored against Texas A&M. From what I found, I think that's old, but I don't know because it had Texas as a 10-point favorite. So again, I'd like to get some more updated info on some of these point spreads, but I believe that this is how it would go based off of the favorites winning. Ohio State obviously will be 2. Alabama, I believe, will be favored over Texas A&M. Indiana 3. Texas A&M. Now, if they lose to Texas, then who goes to the SEC Championship? I don't know, and that's going to obviously shake things up. I don't know. I feel like, so if we're going to favor Texas in that game, I think that probably changes things. So I'm just going to, for this video, we're just going to say Texas A&M is going to be the favorite in that game. Again, I really don't know. They're going to be ranked higher, so it depends on how you want to look at it. But anyways, Texas A&M at 4. Then you just go down the list. Georgia should win out. Ole Miss should have went out. Again, if the favorites went out. Texas Tech should win out. They'll be 7. Oregon at 8. Notre Dame at 9. I mean, it's pretty simple there. Where it gets interesting is the number 10 spot. So I'm going to go ahead and put Georgia Tech in at 11. They should be favored over Pitt because they're at home. And again, depending on how the tiebreakers go, if they get to the ACC Championship, I think they probably are favored. Again, that's a tough one. We're talking about some hypotheticals here, so I'm just trying to use my best guess here. So South Florida at 12, Georgia Tech at 11. But that number 10 spot is interesting because if BYU loses to Texas Tech in a rematch, then they're going to have 2 losses. But one of those losses would have come in the Big 12 Championship. Then you're going to have Oklahoma potentially at 9-3. If Texas does beat Texas A&M, but they lose to Georgia, then I think Texas at 9-3, they are in that discussion. And then even Utah, even though they lost to BYU, I think Utah's in that discussion. If Miami wins out, could Miami get into that discussion? So that would be definitely a debate for that number 10 spot. If BYU loses to Texas Tech twice and they get blown out both times, I think there's going to be some real pushback on them being in the college football playoff, because people are going to say, well, if they can't compete with a playoff caliber team, why would we put them in there? Then you're going to have the side that says, well, they earned it. They went 11-1. Their second loss came in a conference championship game. So I don't know what that will look like, but I think tonight's rankings are going to give us a better idea of where BYU might wind up if they do get there and lose that game. But this is my best guess as to what the playoff will look like, again, if all of the favorites win out. Give me your thoughts on the playoff picture up to this point down in the comments below.